It started in here.
Ba-doom.
Everybody.
So I went to Homeland Security this morning.
Oh, really?
I signed up for TSA PreCheck.
Oh, nice.
Well, I didn't know
It
this,
went
but
Fancy.
when you get Nexus, which is global entry for Canada, the US, you also get TSA PreCheck. They just throw it in there.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's for your Canadian friends.
That's pretty cool. That's a nice little bonus. All right.
It's nice at SFO because they have their own security. They don't use TSA.
Oh, now I've flown out of San Francisco. I didn't even notice that. Is that just for Canadians, or do you guys get a special spot?
Everyone has. I think SFO just doesn't use TSA for some reason.
Oh, I didn't
They have
even
their
realize
own
that.
system.
Yeah, they hire their own private non-government security people.
Maybe they're a little nicer. No offense
I think
to
they're a
any.
little better.
No offense to any TSA people.
Yeah.
Just the few that I've
Now
met.
who's getting the pat down?
I know. Oh no, I'm flying on Monday. Shoot.
You, Lori Gill. Oh, no.
Are you going somewhere fun at least?
I'm going to CES.
Oh, that's right. God, I forgot. It's CES already. Damn it.
Already.
Well, that must be a super short flight for you.
Oh yeah, it's less than 2 hours.
Like an hour?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
It's like an hour and 40 minutes or something. Yeah.
Nice. You can't even finish a movie.
Next Friday, I'm going to bring all my stuff. Well, I'm going to bring enough stuff with me to podcast from CES. So hopefully we'll all be available and we can do that, because I don't think I have any appointments Friday morning and we can podcast. So it'll be great.
Nice.
All right, let's get this started. Okay. Good afternoon. Today is Friday, January 3rd, 2020. That's right, 2020. Today, we're going to talk about our predictions for Apple this year and beyond, because this is the iMore Show. And joining us today is the iMore Show's expert therapist and head of anxiety-videos.com and gorgeous hair wearer today, Georgia Dow. Welcome, Georgia.
Hello. Welcome the new year. Very exciting.
Yes. And also joining us on the show is the man who hit 30 million views in just 2 years on YouTube. That's Renee Ritchie at Vector. Welcome, Renee.
Hello, Lori Gill. So great to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy decade.
Let old acquaintances be forgotten. No, I don't want to forget you people. It's such a horrible song.
Oh, no, actually, I was reading a little bit about it, because I don't know if you ever do this, but in my brain, it's old Angzine, like OLDANGZINE or something like that. But I know that's not that's not the words.
Georgia told me it was old anxiety.
Get rid of the old anxiety. I did a little bit of research on the song, and it's not saying forget old Angzine, because old Angzine is like some sort of interpretation of the phrase days gone by. It's actually saying, should we forget days gone by? No, we shouldn't. Let's drink a cup of cheer to them. So if you're not paying attention to the lyrics of the song, it's very confusing. But once you actually read through the lyrics, it's this beautiful poem, actually. So a little bit of information for you about Auld Lang Syne, which, by the way, it's AULD.
Old.
LANGSYNE.
Yeah, see, didn't know that.
Yeah. I was watching The Crown with my mom over the holidays, and they're trying to teach the Prince of Wales to speak Welsh. And I've heard some complicated languages in the past, but everything there is like 18 syllables long.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems kind of complicated.
I'm probably someone just insulted somebody in Welsh. I apologize.
Now you got the show banned.
Yeah.
So I am playing. I don't do Pokemon Go really, like a little bit. Like I'm like the most casual.
When a new feature comes out, Georgia taps the screen twice.
Yeah, well, no, we go to like the big events. Like we do the big.
You went to Safari Zone Montreal in September.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, but my kids started me off on Pokemon Shuffle, which I love because it has all of the features of Candy Crush.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Candy Crush, and they loaded onto the phone and placed it next to my Candy Crush, along with catching Pokemon.
So is it like 3 Pikachu in a row? They all scored?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Each Pokemon has a little head. They have little powers.
Aww.
And then, if you row them up, you get to deal with it.
That is a genius way to make even more money off the Pokemon franchise, though. I mean, respect.
Yeah, friend me if you play the game, because I need more hearts, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, I like that. Yes. Yeah, I'll friend you.
Are you playing it?
Not yet, but I will now.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait.
I tried out the new Pokemon Go buddy feature, and I've gotten to the point where my shiny Mewtwo is giving me gifts, but I don't really understand them because they're sort of like totally random. So he's given me flower fruits and a marble, and they don't do anything. They just
a marble.
No, really? He's just giving you random objects that you
No. This works though. Here's what I'm thinking. Have you ever played Neko Atsumi? This adorable
although I love the name.
collection game. It's really cute. And when you befriend these little kitties and they like you enough, they bring you toys, and they don't mean anything. They're just little gifts that they
like
give
sparrows. They just bring you shiny objects.
Exactly. So that's what's happening is like you're just bonding with you. You don't get anything for it. It just immerses you in the story a little bit more. Your Mewtwo loves you so much that it brought you a marble.
Nice. And then uses the psychic powers to destroy my enemies. It's a good relationship.
It's pretty good.
So there's no bonus like in power wise.
Oh yeah. So totally there is. So the first level here, I'll show you the first level. I'll have to go back. So there's a catch assist. So if I throw the Pokeball and the Pokemon trying to catch headbutts it back, Mewtwo will pop his head out sometimes and headbutt it back.
Oh, that's really
and then catch the Pokemon for me.
That is really cute.
And he's finding presents. And on this one, he'll find he hasn't done it yet. He's supposed to be able to find me locations and then give me souvenirs, which are those marbles and things. And the last one, he gets a CP boost, which means he can get even more powerful. And also he gets a lame little ribbon that says best in show or something. I took him to the show.
But Mewtwo think it's great.
Yeah. No, he's going to think, what am I, a prize pig or something over here?
I guess your Pokemon are more, they're like fighting buddies, not tea drinking buddies.
I don't know.
All my Pokemon just like to be pet.
Pikachu drinks coffee, as far as Ryan Reynolds has informed me.
It's true.
I will divulge for just a moment. So yesterday, a friend of the show, Dave Wiskus, posted that New York was infested with Pikachu with party hats for the new year, and he copied Mayor de Blasio on the tweet. And then I responded with a whole bunch of them as well. And he said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Let's get their only natural predator." And I put a picture of Ryan Reynolds up on the screen. And then Wiskus pointed out, because it's a bunch of verified accounts, it's probably showing up in their notifications, and they're going to think that we're real dumb on New Year.
Yep. What are these idiots talking about?
Or he might reply. Ryan Reynolds has a great sense of humor.
Maybe he'll buy Pokemon.
Yeah, maybe. Add that to his list of companies that he owns.
What is up with that? So like Ryan Reynolds bought Mint Mobile, and The Rock has bought that water that Georgia likes. I forget the name. Like what is that water you have in the bottles, Georgia? And they all say they bought an ownership stake, but I don't know what that means. Is it like I gave them $1 and now they're going to let me market it and I'll get a percentage of all the marketing? Or did they really buy like 51% of the company?
They bought enough to make money. They're diversifying. Apple's doing subscriptions. They're deciding to go into products.
God, it's such a weird world. Thank you, 2020.
I bet people have been doing that for a long time. Celebrities have been doing that for a long time. We just didn't used to hear about it as much.
Bob Barker's cheese.
Exactly.
It's Bob Barker's Mini Bomb Bell cheese.
So we were talking about Pokemon, and let me just drop this in here real quick for one particular reason. Actually, no particular reason, because you just started talking about it. But Georgia and Renee and everybody who's listening, if you play any version of any Pokemon game at all, you have to check out iMore's Pokedex. We just created it earlier this week. Cassie and Holly went through and built a comprehensive guide for every single 890 Pokemon. And not only can you just look at the stats and the information about each Pokemon, but you can filter it. And here's why this is a big deal. As far as I know, this does not exist on the internet. I can filter the Pokemon by type and then by their strengths or weaknesses. So if I'm about to go into a battle, or if I'm just trying to fight a wild Pokemon and I've never seen it before, I go to this Pokedex, I filter by type. So if it's a ghost Pokemon, and then I can filter by what it's weak at. And then I can choose the right Pokemon to fight against it so that I can completely crush it, catch it, put it in my stash. It's amazing. And this Pokedex is absolutely phenomenal and stunning. And we're continuing to grow it and perfect it. So it's imore.com/Pokemon Pokedex. So please check it out. I had to drop that in there because I've been using it literally nonstop while I'm playing Pokemon Sword. It's pretty awesome.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool.
Castian and Derek did an amazing job.
Yeah. That's Derek Kessler, who did the background work to make all of the filtering and coding work really well so that it works smoothly and looks good. So yeah, it's pretty great. So we got a quick question in the chat channel, which I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. Ikishin. I'm sorry if I totally annihilated your name there, but I will be at CES. I'll be in attendance there, so you'll see a lot of stuff from me on the Twitters. We're going to have a couple of fun articles coming up next week about it, and of course, obviously, all of the drops for announcements and things like that. And yeah, so Apple also has not really been there in official capacity for 30 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. And they are going to be there as part of a panel on privacy and security. Renee, do you know a little bit about that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm blanking on her name now, but it's one of Apple's directors of, is vice president? I forget. I think director of privacy. And she's just going to be, Apple's like, last year, Tim Cook spoke famously at the World Council, saying that he believed the U.S. needed privacy laws, on data minimization, on security, on transparency, all these things. And so Apple's taking the opportunity to continue to spread that message. I think it's way better than putting up. As much as I like them putting up billboards, because then we can get even angrier when they mess up. I think it's it's good motivation to keep them in line. I think this is way better. Pardon me?
Apple executive Jane Horvath.
That's right, Jane Horvath.
Thank you.
It should be really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make sure I go to that panel because it's definitely sounds interesting. But I do think it's a little odd that it's also joining Apple in this is Facebook. So what are they going to talk about? Are they there to listen?
They need to talk about privacy so they can find ways to circumvent your privacy.
Well, they're gaslighting people. I mean, both Facebook and Google are. So it was weird. A few years ago, AI was a popular term, and everybody had to talk about AI. And before that, it was the cloud. Like everyone doing a keynote had to mention cloud. If you didn't have one, you just called whatever you had the cloud. And if you didn't have AI, you just called whatever you did AI. And last year, because I think primarily because it was getting so much attention, it was privacy. But like Google and Facebook don't really have a privacy story because they need our data. So Facebook called encryption privacy when it's not. And Google called data retention privacy when it's not. Like you can delete your Google data after 3 months, which is when they've extracted all the value from it. But put the word privacy up on the board behind you when you tell people what it is, and you suddenly got a privacy policy.
Interesting. It'll be interesting to hear what everyone has to say about that. I think Apple's going to steal the show for sure.
Can I point something out, Lori? It's completely random, but it occurred to me yesterday.
Yes.
On January 2nd, 2019, Tim Cook wrote an almost unprecedented letter where he said that Apple was going to miss their earnings revenue. It was only the second time in the company's history.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, he said, because of iPhone and mostly because of China. And it was huge news. Like it was devastating news to Apple financially. And now fast forward to January 2nd, 2020, and Apple crossed $300 per share for the first time.
Which congratulations to them. That's super amazing. But guess
that's a pretty interesting turnaround. Yeah. Well, it's more that because everybody always says Apple is perpetually doomed and Tim Cook is horrible and all these things, but Apple's management team managed to get them out of their biggest crisis to date and beat their best goals to date, which I think is a pretty good showing for a year.
Yeah, I do wish there was more open recognition about that kind of achievement. It is a really big deal, and there needs to be more coverage of that.
Yeah.
Balance that out a little bit. I get it. You talk about the pitfalls and shortcomings, but also talk about the amazing things that they've done too.
So they're going to be talking about privacy, and now Russia's saying that they're going to force all phones and devices to have certain apps on them.
And Australia is going to refuse encryption. It's going to be interesting.
So how is Apple going to respond when authoritarian governments and non-authoritarian governments are forcing certain systems in place that reduce privacy?
Australia hasn't done anything yet, so the Apple hasn't responded yet. Their unofficial response to Russia is that they will pull out of the market.
Really?
Yeah, which is weird because well, some people don't like that either because some people believe that American companies shouldn't dictate. Like, Russia's point of view is that American software shouldn't be on Russian phones; it should be Russian software. And I don't know, I don't want to call them nationalists because I don't think that's the same kind of way that people use the term nationalism. But there's an increasing sentiment, like France wants all data stored in France, and people want their stuff. Like they feel for a long time, other countries have controlled their destiny. it's not realistic for Russia to make their own iPhone, for example. Like, so like a Russian company starts making an maybe that's the best answer to it. So not everybody is happy about it, but I think Apple's concern is that every one of those apps will be a spyware app.
Yeah.
And I think it's not an invalid concern.
I think this again speaks to that issue that has been up in the last few years, especially of this like global economy and global companies and how they're supposed to navigate this world, because we can't, the US can't enforce its own policies on other countries. But when you're a US based company, when you cater to, things that you that go against your political views or your personal beliefs as a company, how do you navigate that? And that does become really a complicated issue of, different countries don't want everybody else in their business, but they want the benefits of those products. So how do we do this? And phones are the perfect example of, does Apple just hand them a piece of hardware that has zero software on it and then they develop their own operating system for it? Or does Apple say, no, this whole package inside and out belongs to Apple. So if you don't want it this way, then you don't get any of it. Or, do they say, okay, you can install your own spyware apps, because that's what you do in your country. So we're going to let you do that, because Apple has on many occasions done what other countries have asked them to do in terms of like removing apps or, changing locations for storing cloud-based information and stuff. And these are all sort of navigating the world, the global economy and the globalization of things. So, I can't imagine the difficulty of trying to figure out who they like, what regulations they go, okay, we'll do this, and what regulations they say, no, that's crossing the line, that's too much. And is it financially based, or is it politically charged? Because there are lots of times where Apple will make a decision that from our perspective looks like a politically motivated response to something. And there's other times where we think that they fell short of, like standing up to certain kinds of political viewpoints that, some of us might think are wrong. So it's a crazy, I have difficult time talking about it, because I can't imagine what it must be like to try to sit in a room and decide how to deal with every single country's different ways of doing things and regulations that they want to put in place.
It seems like Apple usually will make a political stand unless it's going to seriously damage their bottom line. Like if
it's
China
not an
was
important market, right?
Yeah. And Russia, they don't make any phones in Russia. They're not part of the entire Apple, ecosphere truly. If China asked exactly the same thing, I think that Apple would have a much more difficult time and probably would say, okay, you can place whatever apps you want to.
They removed stuff, right? Like in the Middle East, they removed FaceTime, but I don't recall them ever adding anything.
Yeah. Again, I would be really if Apple does not pull out of the market, and then Russia kind of through appeasement gets a red light, a green light to be able to go ahead with this, other authoritarian countries will go ahead and do the same thing.
So it didn't happen in China. China did it with Android phones, but they weren't able to do it with iOS phones. They were adding an app that everybody had to have on their phone when they crossed checkpoints, and it didn't. Nothing happened with iOS. It was Android only.
So if it were not about having it's part of the software, part of iOS installed, and it was something where, every person who buys an iPhone in Russia, there's somebody before they hand them the phone that downloads these certain apps that are required. Is that to me, that seems like that would work, because that's not Apple software that's
but then
being
it would
installed
be able
on
to
these
be
apps.
deleted though, right, Lori?
Yeah, it would. Yeah. So
I think that what they're hoping for is they want stuff on the phones that cannot be deleted.
They'd have to enterprise manage everything, as if they were like a giant company and everyone had one of their employee phones in order to restrict that.
And the thing is, Apple would have to spend time, money, effort to make sure that this doesn't brick the phones, that it has compatibility. It would also be a huge amount of overhead for Apple to be able to enforce and deal with.
I forget which country, it might have been Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan, and I apologize for not remembering which country, but they tried to do a national level. They tried to do it outside of the software layer So I think they did it by installing a root certificate in the network that would channel all traffic through them, and then they could monitor all of it. And Apple fairly quickly removed that domain from working on their devices. So it wouldn't be recognized as a top level. Yeah, it wouldn't be recognized as a valid certificate anymore.
Yeah.
But it is super complicated, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people are thinking of all sorts of other insidious ways to do it. Like if they can't get to the phone, they might just go to the carrier. The carrier might just give them almost everything anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on globally that's definitely.
And it's not new. Like 10 years ago, we were dealing with this on Crackberry because countries like Singapore were demanding that Squid servers be installed to break through encryption on BlackBerry Messenger, BBM messages. So there's a long and ignoble, is that the right word? I'm making up words now. An ignoble history of countries messing with communication.
Yeah, but I think like as these companies, especially U.S. companies, get bigger and more global, then these governments start to want more access and more information. And so, if you live in a country where a regulation like that or a law like that can be passed, what are you going to do about it? It's your law in your country, and it's just a matter of do you think that it's fair that Russian citizens don't get access to an iPhone because of the regulations that Russia wants in place? And at the same time, do you think that Apple should be creating software themselves hard installed on a phone that could potentially allow for spying and tracking and things like that? It's these.
And what about the existing customers? Like
and what about the existing customers? Are they going to take the phone away from them? Like, how is that?
They'll probably lose backup services. They'll lose photo repositories.
Some crazy stuff. Speaking of how this is working out, how this is going to play out in the future, let's talk a little bit more about 2020 and Apple. So a little bit about globalization we've just talked about, but what about things like hardware? What kind of hardware predictions do you think we're going to see? Some of them are rumors that have already come to, or that rumors that are already being talked about. Renee, you had a great vector video up this morning that we'll link in the show notes. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I put out that video and then immediately Samsung announces new Galaxy Light and Galaxy Note Light phones and just blows up like what people expect. That's the big thing this year, is that a lot of companies are pushing out really close to flagship phones at much lower prices, not always intended for the US market, of course, where they feel like they can charge more for those features. But it's interesting to see because it's a hyper competitive market. And the rumor, it's funny. Like I always think that Apple has certain plays that they perform. Like even before this last year's September iPhone event, I thought it was going to be very similar to the 2016 iPhone event, where you got a similar iPhone with a better camera and then a really cool accessory to go with it. And even though the tags never shipped, I still felt like the event was built that way. And now this March, I'm wondering if we're going to get a repeat of the 2016 March event, where we get the iPhone SE2 or iPhone 9, whatever Apple calls it, along with the new iPad Pro that has the iPhone 11 camera system on it. So I think that it's sort of like like fractal patterns through patterns through patterns. Because last year we just got the services events, right, Lori? Like we were sitting there and watching Oprah and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And the year before that, we got the education event. And the year before that, I think there was nothing. But the year before that was that iPhone SE and Baby Pro. And the year before that was the new the new MacBook 12-inch and the Apple Watch launch. So it varies so much in the spring.
Yeah, there's definitely no real way to predict it. But Renee, I think you kind of nailed, if it's going that route, you've nailed what we can expect, which is the updated iPad Pro. And that one in particular makes a lot of sense, just based on a lot of the things that we're hearing from suppliers, the rumors that are coming out. That one seems pretty close to solid. And Apple does tend to release at least brand new designs of iPads in March. So that fits that sort of lineup of like, let's go crazy and introduce a brand new feature or a brand new design of an iPad. The smaller or slightly less expensive iPhone. I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I believe that's even happening at all. You know how I feel about the SE, and even calling it an iPhone 9, or, to me right now, the iPhone 11 it's kind of the perfect phone, but it's also reasonably priced. Comparatively, I know that you could get something cheaper through Android with an Android software or something like that. But I struggle with Apple basically getting rid of the iPhone 7, iPhone 8, and then introducing an iPhone 9 that's basically an iPhone 7 or 8 with maybe a processor upgrade.
iPhone 11 internals. Yeah. Well, the original SE was an iPhone 5S with iPhone 6S internals because they paid down. So like there's a lot of expectational debt with these phones. I love that Georgia Dow term. I'm going to keep using it. So people are asking why I'm looking down when I'm talking. It's because I have the camera up here, but Lori and Georgia are down here, and I feel rude not looking at them.
Yeah.
When I talk
you could
to
look
them
directly at the camera, but then you're not looking at the people.
Yeah. So it's just habit.
Yeah, it's the effects of talking on a video chat like this. That's the way it is.
They may not be in the same spot.
What happens when Apple makes a new device, it's super expensive because they retool everything, like literally to the atomic level. There's new kinds of aluminum, like new formulations of it, processes like chamfering edges or making special clear coats. All this stuff goes into it, and it's expensive to make those phones, and they pay those off as quickly as they can, but it takes 2-3 years to pay those off. So by the time the iPhone SE came out, that iPhone 5 chassis, like the whole design, was paid off. It was very inexpensive for Apple to keep making them. All the machines, like everything that were tooled up, they were all just ready to go, and they could shove the new guts inside them. And the same thing now. If Apple were to make a smaller or budget iPhone, a new iPhone, it would cost new iPhone prices because all that stuff like Face ID modules and all those things would have to be paid for. They're not paid down yet. And also like those processors, like people are complaining it's not small enough, but those processors run so big and hot now that you need a battery that's big enough to feed them, especially when they spike. Otherwise, you get those shutdowns that were happening with the iPhone 6 and 6S until Apple Performance managed them, and nobody wants like their phone to just turn off randomly because of performance hikes. So they've paid off the iPhone, like the iPhone 6 to iPhone 8 are pretty much the same platform. That's all paid off. It doesn't cost that much to make those phones anymore. The new components, like it's going to have an updated camera, the updated processor, those are still expensive, which means it'll cost like $399, but it won't cost $699 like the iPhone 11. And it lets Apple get new. And some people like Lori just wanted that iPhone 5S form factor
so bad.
with new stuff inside it. And some people just still want the damn home button, but with like better cameras, and that like having that home button is the new having that iPhone 5S form factor. So this lets them, they make their most money when they can service multiple markets. Like if you have to make a separate phone for each market, it's more expensive and you have to pick and choose which ones you're going to service. But with the iPhone SE, they got people who wanted a small phone and people who wanted a cheap phone. Now they're going to get people who want a cheap phone and people who just want their damn home button and Touch ID. And it lets them again service, 2 markets with one device.
No chance we get both Touch ID and Face ID
next year.
Small.
No, later this year.
Yeah, well, so Renee has also another great vector video where he kind of goes through the future iPhone, like 10 years down the road, which honestly, Renee is like a sci-fi author whose predictions eventually come true when you like think back on it. Like it happens all the time when you read sci-fi books and you're like, oh, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's literally a phone, a
the rats
cellular
really
phone.
are controlling us.
So Renee writes he talks about all these things that he's kind of he analyzes what the current trends are and sort of like sees the future, and he kind of comes up with these ideas, and a lot of them it's like, yeah, I could see that happening in over the next few years, like within the decade. So an iPhone that has both Touch ID and actually, Renee, I think how you describe it is like complete biometric scanning. So it registers your gait and it registers your skin and your heartbeat and like everything and mixes it all around so that you're just like constantly being like biometrically monitored by your phone instead of using anything like a finger or a face or anything like that. It's pretty interesting.
It's a threshold. So there's two schools of thought. Some people want multiple factors just so they can have more security. Like they want you to have a fingerprint and a face scan, for example. And I get that. If you work with sensitive stuff or that's a priority for you, that's fine. But I think for most people, you shouldn't have to worry about security. Like it shouldn't be something you have to manage. Like you shouldn't be. We saw that when there was just passcodes, a lot of people just didn't use them. And Touch ID is still like sometimes your phone is still locked and I just washed the dishes and it won't open. And Face ID, it's like, it's shaking its head again because I'm not at the right angle. And it's annoying. And so if you have multiple systems that just understand you, and it's not like they should be monitoring you all the time, but it should be, they have a level of trust. Like the device says 80% sure it's Lori and there's no real security risk. So I'm going to just stay unlocked. And then if you pick it up, like you're holding the phone, you tap an icon, it just checks your fingerprint, or like it sees or you're looking at your phone, its camera sees you, it just checks your facial geometry, and it just it's still Lori. Or like as you're walking, it's in your pocket and it knows your step pattern. It's just it's still Lori. And people have done that in the past with things like Bluetooth dongles. But I remember Phil Nickinson was wearing his Bluetooth dongle. I just took it off of him and picked up his phone. Like that doesn't work. But there are other things we have with us that can be used as signals. And it can be like as Nuance has been doing this for years, where like it hears your voice. So if it has like a snippet of your voice, like a bit of your facial geometry, instead of having to stop and sit there and do everything every time, it just gets enough little aspects that it passes a threshold. And anytime it goes below that threshold, like it just challenges you. It says, "Oh, sorry, I lost track of you. Now you have to thumb, or you have to face scan, or you have to do whatever is easiest for you."
Though the only thing with that, Renee, is that there's a huge difference between identity and like protection. Like a passcode, like people have been able to we've heard all the stories of while the person was sleeping, they, A, B, or C, or D to try to unlock the phone that they didn't know. There's definitely a huge difference between that. And so I would like for my phone that, if I use a different finger, it goes on lock mode so that, now it needs a passcode. Nothing else is going to work. My phone's locked down.
Or my resting grump face would lock it down.
It would be I think if you want face really over grump though. Yeah.
I think if you care about security, like whether it's your job, like you work for a government agency or you just really care about it, you shouldn't use biometrics, because biometrics are, like you said, they're a username, they're not a password. They're a convenience, exactly. They're not security. So if you want to be convenient, we should give you ultimate convenience. If you want to be secure, I think it just falls back on you to have, a password and maybe a second factor set up.
Right.
I've always thought that it would be a really good idea to offer the option to have both. I don't see why it's difficult for Apple to implement just a feature where you can toggle a switch that lets you use your Face ID or Touch ID and a passcode. And I think a lot of people want that. They want the ability to use their biometric scan and then have their passcode. That's just like double protection. Yeah. And it seems easy to implement that. Just, step one, you're recognized by your biometric scan, and then step two, you enter the passcode. And just a little toggle that way people...
your passcode isn't enough.
So Federighi covered that, I forget when, but he said like they get that request a lot. But the problem is, like, let's say you have like Touch ID and a passcode and you burn your finger on the stove. You can no longer use that passcode. And then you have to have some way to recover it. So that means you have to add a third thing, like there's those old recovery keys that you print out and you keep in a thing, or like, the Face ID sensor stops working on your phone. Like there's just, in order to still get into your device, it creates then a third. You always have to have one more factor than you're actually using at the time, if that makes sense.
Like a backup factor, like how, we always have like an email backup or something like that. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Apple Store with ID. But for people that work in law, medical professionals, there's certain fields, politics, that might be, really important to be able to have.
Oh, they're all using, I think, those little BlackBerry pagers from 1912.
Because they want to make sure that nobody gets into their stuff. Yeah. Let's take a quick break real quick, and let me tell you something about Thrifter. Thrifter is a fantastic way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value, not hype. You can sign up at thrifter.com today to get thoughtfully selected tech deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy daily without all of the fluff. So Georgia and Renee, hop on over to thrifter.com right now and pick one of your favorite deals for today. I'm looking at a lot of different cool things that I'd be interested in buying right now.
You also have some poor woman trapped in what looks like a medieval torture device.
But
The
she's
exercise one.
She's got her gains with that thing. So
holy crap, Lord Gil, there's an Apple Watch Series 5 for $70 off.
Right?
I know.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah. So this is literally just scrolling the homepage of thrifter.com. The third row down, it shows the Apple Watch Series 5 discounted up to 70% off on Amazon. That's a pretty hefty discount on the brand new Series 5 Apple Watch.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's got fall protection and it's got emergency SOS international, and I'm going to sell people on Apple Watches, but they're just fantastic.
The always on screen, of course, the Series 5. That's its big.
It was life changing for Georgia.
I love it. Still love it. I'll say for 2020 for the 6, I do have some wants, but I'll keep those for after when we discuss it. There's also if you don't have an electric toothbrush, the Philips Sonicare, which is the one that I have, is you're saving 47%, $70 off, $80, and cleaning your teeth with a Sonicare is the closest thing to getting a professional cleaning for your teeth. It is amazing. Your teeth will feel cleaner than they have ever felt, besides when you get them professionally cleaned, which it is a little better, I'm not going to lie. Amazing. They're fabulous toothbrushes. I will never go back to manually brushing my teeth, ever.
That discount is so good, too.
It's really good. And your teeth, again, you keep your teeth for life. Take good care of. Well, yeah, depend if you get the Sonic. So it's a great investment for a fabulous price. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I also noticed that the Power Beats Pro, which are my second favorite now, used to be my number one favorite, but now they're my second favorite in-ear headphones. They're on sale for $50 off, including all of the various colors that you can get. And this is also at Amazon. It's only a 21% discount, but it's really great to see those things go on sale. So for $200 instead of $250, you might actually want to go for that one, the Power Beats Pro, which I bring them with me everywhere I go because I love them. The AirPods Pro win the day for me now, though. So that's that overpowered Power Beats Pro for my number one. And those are not on sale right now. So that's Thrifter.com. You can visit Thrifter.com anytime, any day. Check out all of their amazing deals, or you can sign up for Thrifter's newsletter and receive exclusive insider information delivered to your inbox with these amazing deals every day. You can go to Thrifter.com to sign up now. And thank you, Thrifter, for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. So let's talk a little bit about our wants for 2020. Georgia, you brought something up about the Series 6 Apple Watch. So let's dive in right now with that.
So 2 things. One is I would like sleep tracking that is much more in-depth, can tell me really about my quality of sleep. And so with that, I would want fast charging so that you can sleep with your watch through the night, and then you can get some fast charging so that, when you're, getting ready, you just charge up your watch, it's ready to go, and you are out the door. The second thing is that though my watch is always on, I would like it not to be in sleep mood. So with that better battery that I've now also asked for, it's not too much. I'd like it to be always on. So I don't have to, I'm often doing a swipe to try to, take a look at notifications and see what's been messaged. And you have to kind of tap swipe because it has to then turn on first. So for the time, I don't have to do anything, but to actually interact with my watch, I have to give a little tap first, which I forget. I've swiped a few times and then I just feel like there's something wrong with me. And then it wakes up and then I can actually interact with it. So those are my wants for the Series 6.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
They bought Beddit. Was it last year? No, because it's 2020 now. So 2 years ago, they bought Beddit. So I'm really hoping they integrate that. I have that as on my list. Also, the notifications, it gets me every time. I'm like, why is this not working? Because you just swipe down and it stays dark because it doesn't even register the swipe as a tap to wake it up.
It does not.
Frustrating.
No.
That was in
doesn't
my
matter.
review. I did my 3 month later review.
Oh,
And I
did you?
included that in my gripes. But also, I wanted to go free from iPhone. Like, you know, like when iOS 5, the
Yes.
iPhone went free from
Ah,
iTunes.
That would be
And I would just,
awesome.
because there's all these people who don't have an iPhone but might benefit from an Apple Watch, and I don't think it makes sense for Apple to like port it to a bunch of other platforms, but just making it independent.
That
I
would
think
be
would
amazing.
terrific.
You're right, Renee. I'll add that one onto my list.
Do it.
Yeah, that's actually high on my list, is people being able to use an Apple Watch without having to have an iPhone. I think just based in the last couple of years, when all of these life-saving things that we've heard about, and it keeps going, you keep hearing more and more about it. And we're talking about people getting lost in the woods, people falling off cliffs, people discovering that they have an issue with their heart that never would have been found without it. These are such big deals, in my opinion, that Apple is doing a disservice to humanity to not make it available to everybody, because I just think of it's so incredible to think of all the people that have had their lives saved or their life extended because they've discovered some sort of heart issue that they found early. I want everybody to have the opportunity to experience that. So not only make it available to people who don't have iPhones, but make it a little bit more cost. Well, actually, Series 3, if you make a Series 3 version that's available outside of the iPhone ecosystem, but it also has to have fall detection and the ECG monitor. That I think
And
that's
emergency calling.
Yeah, I think
there's
these
a couple
things are
holdups still. So like, and they're inching their way towards it. Like we got the onboard app store this year, but we also got, because there's limitations by its size. The iPhone had to grow enough that it could actually be functional and you could do everything you needed to do in iTunes on the iPhone. And the Apple Watch, like now you can choose Wi-Fi networks, which you couldn't before, but also the radios are so small they can't really support that. They're not real radios yet.
Right.
Like you still have to have your iPhone on at home in order to do things like messages. Because they have numbers, but they don't have real numbers. They're still like, so they need to miniaturize a proper LTE radio that has multiband support in there. And I think once they get those few things done, then the product will stand on its own. It's just like, it's too small. They can't make it really big.
I would sacrifice the size if it was truly like
Samsung made one. It was the size of the original iPhone.
Okay, that might be too large. I was thinking like
they're smaller now, but I mean, like that was like 2-3 years ago. They were a size
1.5 times the thickness is what I'm thinking I would sacrifice. I don't think double the thickness would be too much for me, but I could go larger to be able to have a device that I really don't need to take my phone for. I think that a lot of people would make that sacrifice.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that there are smart watches out there. They don't do as much as Apple Watch does, but they don't need an iPhone or an iPad. They can, or an Android phone. They can function on their own as a smart device. And I think they can do it. I think that they're waiting till the technology catches up to what they want to do.
Yes.
They want to perfect it. And I get that. And you don't want people to have a bad experience.
And you can't take away features they're used to. Like if a watch never had those features, like people will accept that. But if it's like, well, it works, but you don't get these notifications anymore, people would be mad.
Yeah. So and I hope that this comes soon, that this comes fast, because I do honestly think that Apple Watch is a life-saving device. That's the most exciting thing in the past decade, and I can't imagine in the future having anything as powerful as Apple Watch. And I want to see it available to many more people, and have it not be so like platform restrictive like that. So yeah. Renee, what about you?
Then the AirPods will become the next Apple Watch, and then eventually they'll get independence, and Georgia will just be able to go around with her AirPods and talk to her best friend Siri all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And if she
my
falls,
AR glasses will have all the
notice.
information, and it'll be like a Terminator world.
Yeah, Renee, what about you? What product do you want to see in 2020 that you think would, like, if you had your wish list right now?
So I'm gonna a lot of them I think are really like, I want the new iPhone, of course, and I want the new iPad, and I want all those things. There's two that I'm really looking forward to. One I think we have a good chance at. One I don't know. So the one that I think we have a good chance at is the mini LED versions of some of the products. I think they'll come in higher end. Like I think we'll get a 2016 version of the MacBook Pro and a 2016 version of the iPad Pro that have mini LED screens. Because just like looking at my television at home, which is an LG OLED, or the iPhone now with the XDR displays, or like Lori and I got to salivate over the XDR displays at WWDC, and not having that on an iPad or a Mac. Like once you get used to, especially because Disney Plus is in HDR and Apple TV Plus is in HDR, and it looks so good. It's better than 4K. I'd rather have HDR than 4K, and just getting that. But OLED is a problematic technology, especially at larger screen sizes, because it's hard to keep the brightness levels consistent. And there's all these mitigations and off angle, and people like want to share screens when they're bigger. And when you're off angle, everything looks blue or something. Like it's just not as enjoyable. And the displays age out faster. But mini LEDs, it's not quite as good with the black levels. I think there's still a little bit of spillage, but way less than on current LEDs. And it would just look like an XDR display, but on an iPad or a MacBook. And I'd even pay a couple extra $100. Like I would take a tier on top for the first few years to pay that down. I mean, super excited for that. And the second thing is an Apple TV dongle, because I'm hella jealous of the Fire Stick and the Chromecast. And just something I could travel with, because if I'm traveling, it's okay to watch stuff on an iPad or watch stuff on an iPhone. But if I'm in a hotel, I want to just be able to throw something in an HDMI port. Or if I go to like a friend's place and they don't have anything, and I want to show them The Mandalorian or something, I just want to be able to. And even if I have like 2 or 3 rooms, I don't necessarily need an Apple TV 4K in every room, and I could just throw a stick in one of those things and stream to it. I think that would be a great little device.
Yeah, I love the idea of mobile Apple TV so that you can just plug, because yes, we can take our box with us everywhere we go, but who's going to load up all of that extra stuff? If it was just like a little stick that took the power from the television, you stick it in the back of a TV, and suddenly you've got your Apple TV right on whatever screen you want. That would be so fantastic. I would absolutely love something, even if it meant a limited experience, because I've had a Amazon Fire TV and the Fire Stick, and the Fire Stick is really slow and crashes all the time. But if the purpose of it was just to be something that you could take mobile or have it on your second screen or third screen, I would love it. And you can even give me something that's like, you can't have as many apps on this because it doesn't hold as much storage, or the processor's a little slow. So you're going to have to deal with like slowdowns and things like that. It's worth it to me for sure.
Yeah, and the thing for me also is like I've done it with went to my mom's and I watched the Mandalorian finale, and I streamed it off my iPhone because she didn't have Disney Plus. But then it's like your phone, and if someone calls you because it's a phone, or like something else happens, it interrupts the whole experience. I would much rather that get handed off.
Yeah, and there's always
just takes over.
There's always some of those little lag issues too, where you can hi Georgia, you could if you're watching something like The Mandalorian on your mom's television with them, but there's just a little lag in the wireless internet connection or something like that. It becomes so frustrating to have to do that. So. Yeah,
and maybe they can't make it because it's not like, to your point, Roy, maybe it's not powerful enough because they've got really powerful. But I think by now some of the older like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old processor in a little box, and I'm hoping they can do it.
Yeah, and again, like I think that you kind of walk into that with the knowledge that this isn't going to be as powerful as the full box, so you're going to assume a little bit of not as exciting experience. I think. With that in mind, and if it's marketed right, Apple could definitely make a lot of money off of a $50 TV stick that, just gives you just what you want to take when you're going to the airport, when you're staying at a hotel, or if you're visiting friends or something like that. Definitely.
Can I add to that of something that I know I'm not going to get, but I would love to have that would go with the Apple TV or the dongle, whichever way it goes, could we have a redesign of the Apple remote?
Yes.
I like the Apple remote. I know everybody hates it. I have no problem with it. I've never understood why everybody has a like. Yes, it's small, but so what?
I have 2 issues with it. So like my two issues with it are that the menu button is unpredictable. Like I'm watching an episode and it feels like Android to me. I press the button and all I want to do is see other episodes, but I get taken all the way back to the home screen. And other times I press it and I do get to see the other episodes. And some people have told me, well, if you hold it for more than, I have tried experimenting. Like I cannot find a length of time to hold it down for, like it should be like click it or hold it down for 2 seconds if it really is length of time based. But I should never wonder what that button does. Yeah. And also if you make a mistake, it's so destructive. Like if you pick it up wrong and you just press a button right away, it's like, oh, or you're taken out of your show, you're brought back to the home screen, and you can't, there's no like, just go back to what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I just
sorry. Your complaints are actually software related. That's not the TV remote's fault. That's the software design.
The main
the symmetry of it. The symmetry of it would be
holding it, but also the big swipe button. Like, have you ever tried to have someone that's never used an Apple remote before try to use this? It is about
true.
as non-intuitive, non-human friendly as possible. There is no way. And I'm not saying that TV remotes are good by any way stretch. I think that simple is better. But it is impossible to teach someone how to use this remote in a quick, efficient time. It's completely non-intuitive. You're swiping, things are going all over the place. They're pressing one button, then the other button. It needs help. It needs help. Apple is so intuitive with everything that they do. I don't know who designed it and thought it all up. Renee, you probably do. You probably do.
I don't believe they're with the company anymore.
But what were you thinking?
My thing could be like, my biggest complaint is like, I wanted them to have the home button like an iPhone in the center at the bottom, because that way, no matter how you picked it up, you would always, just without even looking at it, even for accessibility, you would always know what the home button is.
Mm-hmm. And you'd always know which way is the right way, because I hear people complain about that a lot, that the top and bottom, other than the different feel, that one side is matte, one side is gloss. A lot of people, and I actually have done this, where I pick it up and press the shiny side of it and go, oh, oops, I've got the wrong side. So I don't hate it the way everybody else does.
Puck. It's the Apple Puck again in a way. And
are you saying that it's like a mouse, Georgia? It's like the Apple TV mouse?
Yes, it's the Apple Puck mouse, the round that you're like your character's going like, left instead of right, because it is a frustrating experience. But so while you get your dongles so we can have the Apple TV everywhere, I would love to have, I don't care if it's simpler, but something that's
Stephen Perry says it too in the chat room. It's like you pick it up, and if you accidentally do the touch thing, like you just want to, it's like it's frozen, then it's swinging across. It's just gone. I think it should be more considerate for my stupidity.
And also, just like when you're trying to fast forward, or you're going to try, the interface is angering. Can I ask for one more thing, Lori? Can I ask for something else? Just not for the Apple TV, but
I'll put it on my list.
I would love to have. Thank you, please, because I know that from your ears to the Apple gods, is I want then the Apple tags, because then we can stick them to the Apple remote. Because that's the other problem that I have with it, is that I lose it because it's so bloody small. And my kids play with it, or they do something with it. And so I want the Apple tags, one, so I can stick one to the remote, and to everything else that I own. Is there any chance, Lori, that you can ask the Apple gods to have those happen in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, that might definitely happen in 2020, and might even happen before the end of 2020. So I'll put in a good word for you there on that one.
Lori, what do you want?
I know the Apple tags. I am also excited about, because we came so close to having them. So I'm excited. I know they're coming. It's just going to be a matter of they've got to do some things on their end to make it accessible to us and usable to us. So I am all for, put it off as long as you need to get it right before you give it to us. But I know it's coming at some point. So unless the AirPower, we lose it. So there's that chance, but I don't know. I have a feeling this one's going to work for sure. But my thing that I want in 2020 is actually pretty small but significant for me, which is an updated version of the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Maybe it would become the 14-inch MacBook Pro, so that it's just like the 16-inch, but it's for the 13-inch screen. I just don't see myself needing a screen that large for my personal needs. So I will not be buying a 16-inch MacBook Pro. But if you update the 13-inch with the new keyboard and have, you know, all the other little special things that the 16-inch has, I will be replacing my MacBook Pro this year. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What I'm hoping for.
That'd be so dope.
Yeah.
And the MacBook Air. I want the MacBook Air to get that keyboard. I just want that keyboard everywhere.
Yeah, definitely across the board. All of the laptops getting the new keyboard for sure. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and what other things could Apple come out with? Maybe a new set of headphones that aren't necessarily in ear, like hands over ear or on ear or something like that, but aren't Beats. I'm still not sure that this is something they're actually working on, just because they have the Beats lineup, and if you want over ear or on ear, you just get those. But there's still a lot of people out there that consider Beats having a negative connotation in terms of their sound quality. So if Apple is making their own version of basically a Beats headphones, but you know, with their brand and their design and all that kind of stuff, that might be kind of fun for a lot of people.
I guarantee you. A couple years on it.
I know. So like maybe there's something. Maybe it's going to be, you know, HomePods for your ears, you know. And I will definitely be getting those if that happens, because I can't help myself when it comes to earphones and headphones from different companies.
CanPods Pro.
I can pods.
and maybe we'll get pencil support for the new phone. That would be something that would be.
I'm not getting my hopes up again, Georgia.
I know your hopes were pretty dashed this year.
Yeah.
It just seems like it makes sense to do it already. Come on.
If you look at the trends in phones right now, there's one phone that has a dedicated stylus. I don't know.
We already have the Apple Pencil, you see? So this could be that you just could use it on, like, and then maybe even, here we go, Georgia going way too far, but I'm going to do it. Maybe I can get my touchscreen or at least pencil support for my MacBook.
I just thought you wanted a glowing Apple logo.
I would sacrifice almost anything. Ixican said that I have to get a better remote. I need an equal sacrifice to the Apple gods. No, I would take up everything. I probably wouldn't give up always on phone, my watch, but for a glowing Apple logo, maybe even in like a rainbow, I'm in. That would be everything for me.
A MacBook Pro with a touchscreen. Is that?
Yes. Oh yes, yes.
Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
No.
This is Bridge's newest keyboard that's coming out. They sent me a prototype to test out. It was very nice of them.
Very pretty.
It's so cool.
Can you show it up into the screen again?
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
It looks like a 12-inch MacBook.
It does. It's beautiful.
So, all right, there we go. So this is just my iPad Pro, my 11-inch iPad Pro, and it's connected to the Bridge keyboard. But they added a trackpad to it so that, let's see if I can do this.
Okay, so Lori, tell me how good that is, though. Is it worth it? Should they be doing this for me?
So here's my full, and I put this in my review, my true opinion of it. It's for what it is, and this is mostly the fault of the software on iOS or iPadOS 13. It's not perfect, but for what you can do with a pointer device, it's amazing. So it allows you to do stuff like you can tap. Let's see if I can do this backwards. So like I'm going to go over to my reminders. You don't have to press. You can tap to open it, right?
Nice.
And then you can tap with 2 fingers to go back to your dock. You can tap with 3 fingers, which... Give me a second. Let me tap out of this real quick. So I'll open up, the Books app real quick. So like the home, the dock down below is out. So you tap with 3 fingers and it brings that dock up for you just like that, right? But you can also click. But here's where it gets in weird. So here's an example of to swipe. There's no swipe. It's just the pointer going across the screen. And again, this is the fault of the software. You have to actually press and then swipe. And you see how kind of awkward that is. It doesn't work that well. But that's not the fault of the trackpad. That's just the way the software is right now. And I think with a little bit of
Apple made a MacBook that could do that, and here we go. If the keyboard could swipe all the way around so you could use it as a tablet. We
Yeah,
can get
I mean,
everything, the best of both worlds.
I definitely see the benefit of having a touchscreen and a trackpad and clickable keyboard. I touch the screen less now that I have the keyboard and trackpad, but every once in a while I'll just want to do something and touch the screen with it. So I definitely can see that. Like, it seems like it would be a really great idea. And maybe not this year, but maybe within the decade, Apple might.
When we get the ARM
decade.
Max.
The decade? Oh, Lori, you're killing me.
I mean, I'm giving him some space here. Giving him a little
an
time.
ARM Mac running iOS. You'll have a
It
blast.
sounds like we're going to get the Apple car before we get that.
All right, we have come down to the end of another hour of the iMore show. We talked about some of the things we want to see in 2020, some of the things that Apple is going to be dealing with in 2020, and things we're hoping will come out. Next week, I will be at CES. So if all goes well, you guys will have me live from not the showroom floor, because that will be way too loud and annoying. But I'll definitely tell you all about the cool things that I've seen.
That would be cute.
It would be cute, but oh man, would it be loud.
And you're leaving Joe
Future
Keller in
has
charge
a
again?
booth, so maybe I'll do it.
You're leaving Joe Keller in charge again?
Awesome. I think you should totally do that. I want to see
Every time Lori leaves and Joe takes over, like, it's just like the Imperial shuttle landing in Return of the Jedi, except he comes off instead of Vader.
Joe Keller does an amazing job of keeping that site tight running ship while I'm away, and I'm so happy to have him helping out. He's amazing.
And on his behalf, I'll just say that he really wants an X Mac from Apple this year, a smaller tower than the Mac Pro. It's on his dream list.
Yeah, that could be. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen this year. Probably not. So thank you, everyone, for listening in. And for those of you that appeared live in our feed, thank you so much. We really enjoy all your comments. You've been pretty active today, and so we're happy to see that. We don't get to respond to everything because we're just blathering on too much, but we do read everything you say. So thanks for jumping in and joining us. We do broadcast almost every Friday, almost always at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We do tweet it out ahead of time. So if you kind of keep an eye out for us on Twitter right beforehand, you'll know for sure what time it is. But otherwise, check the iMore Show's YouTube channel, youtube.com/iMore Show. I get that wrong every time. I don't know if that's true or not.
I think it's right. I believe it's right.
Sending a whole bunch of people to the wrong place.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's right. You can check it to find out if our live stream is up, again, on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you to Jim Messendorf once again for making us sound wonderful. I have a couple of coughs in there. I apologize. You're going to have to hide those. So Jim always makes us sound great. We do this live feed where there's all kind of noise happening in the background, and he takes a moment before sending it off to iTunes to clear out all of that messiness that we've got going on. So thank you for doing that for us. And thank you to all of our listeners, and we'll see you again next week, because this is the iMore Show. Happy New Year.
Woo-hoo! Happy New Year. Literally